Hello, everyone, and welcome to our January Edtech update. My name is Matt Eversole. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Digital Dream Labs, and I'm joined today by our CEO, Jacob Hanchar. How are you doing today, Jacob?
And all right, just have to remember to unmute myself.
That's the world we're in. Everything on Zoom meetings, Google Hangouts, yeah. So, no, I guess again, want to thank everybody for taking a little bit of time out of your day today to learn about all of the exciting things that we're doing at Digital Dream Labs for both our robotics products and our STEAM and STEM video games, things that really make learning incidental. We are using Zoom webinar for the presentation today. And so all attendees will be in mute throughout the presentation. We'll be monitoring the Q&A feature throughout, and we'll pause at the end to answer any of your questions. We will also be sharing a recording of today's presentation via email after the presentation has ended, and we will be sharing a link to a survey so that you can provide feedback and help us make future iterations of this webinar more effective and make sure that we're really answering all of the questions that you have about our EdTech products. So with that being said, I'm going to hand the floor over to Jacob.
All right, thank you, Matt. So I think for those of you who have experienced our product Puzzlets or have played our games in the past, Digital Dream Labs, our values and our mantra has essentially not changed. We value this idea of learning through play, and as Matt said, it's to the point where learning is incidental. So we use humor, learning, and then exploration and developing friendship, where the idea is, hey, now I've made it through this level, through this puzzle, and I've mastered a topic. These pillars, I think, are even strengthened now by the two robots I'm going to mention that are going to be available for sale. They're available for pre-order right now, but will be coming to the market and will be available for the next school year. So Cosmo, first up. So here's a breakdown of who Cosmo is, the features and capabilities. If you can think of Cosmo as kind of a direct learning application where you're talking to the robot directly, moving him through an app, and that children ages probably 6 through 10 are best suited for it. It's a great way for early learners to get involved in robotics and learn robotics in a very controlled environment. So Cosmo, as I mentioned, we have Cosmo 2.0 manufacturing. Delivery will start as early as May 15th, and then throughout the summer, we'll be continuing to deliver. Obviously, this will be in time for the school year. We have other things. If you have currently Cosmo robots in your school, we can provide you more cubes, more treads if you're running low, and then we also have a repair center that can deal with some broken and repair issues. And then the product roadmap, we'll be updating the app. The app is getting stale. We realize that, so we're going to be cleaning that up. And then we also have a coding curriculum that the Carnegie Science Center has developed, and we have that available for purchase as well. Vector. So Vector is a lot more AI-like, a lot more advanced. Typically, we sell these to high schools and universities. For example, the Navy has purchased a lot of vectors simply because you can get a lot more sophisticated in your programming. Python, higher levels of code are necessary to really engage with vector, and you're getting a whole other level. You're getting machine learning and advanced AI, neural nets, things like that currently most let's say middle schools don't offer, but high schools and colleges are absolutely necessary if you want to start understanding robotics and machine learning. So we see these purchases happening with colleges most often, and high schools, and some advanced supplemental schools. Okay, so I see Dean. Hey Dean, how's it going? So Cosmo Cosmo is receiving signals, right? And we can send a signal via Wi-Fi to Cosmo, and these little blocks can go in a sequence. And then once we put a little green button in that sequence in Puzzlets and in the board itself, that'll initiate a sequence. So that's essentially what it's good for. If you think of our product Puzzlets, we have a video game character going on a screen and it's up, down, left, right, for example. So you're going around. The same kind of function would happen with Cosmo, only in this case, it's happening in 3 dimensions. So you could have Cosmo go forward, Cosmo go left, Cosmo back up, Cosmo do an animation, and then you drop the green button in our Puzzlets in the Puzzlets tray, and then it initiates that sequence. And that's teaching children as young as 4 logic and sequencing skills. Okay, so with Vector, we are responding to customer feedback. There are some customers who upgraded to 1.7 who are having issues with Vector understanding them. So we have the option where we're flexible, that if you like the 1.6 firmware better, you can do that. We also have the ability where we can do localized hosting, and that hosting can occur through a number of ways. But for the first, let's call it generation, we're doing Raspberry Pi local hosting, and that gets you off of our servers, and you could do your own thing. A lot of modifications you can make, and then more um, just essentially a deeper experience and an understanding Vector, and then modifying him to your likes and dislikes. Oscar, we have Oscar, which is basically we're opening repositories inside of Vector. So opening a lot of the source code so you can write firmware or make modifications directly. And then again, Vector will be coming out in May/June. And what we're doing with Vector is updating this firmware app as well. And then we have modified Vector, future vectors, and modify vectors and Cosmos, so that way the parts are interchangeable. Yes, there is, I don't have the details in front of me, but you can get a Raspberry Pi discount if you get an Escape Pod or you're buying Oscar. That we have an agreement with a vendor where I think you get 15% off. Is that right, Matt?
Yes, I believe it
Yeah,
is. That's through discount that we're going to be able to offer through CanaKit. And we will be sending an email to anybody who has purchased Escape Pod at release with more details for how they would claim that refund, and also which specific SKUs or setups for that Pi 4 our engineering team feel are best suited for use with Escape Pod for Vector.
cool. Yep. Good questions, Dean. Thank you. I swear, everybody, Dean is not a plant. I promise. All right, yeah, let's go to the STEM games. Okay, so this is where we started back in 2012, the STEM games. So here's Russ the Dinosaur, the guy who kicked it all off. So Russ the Dinosaur in Cork the Volcano teaches, yeah, Dan, I know, yeah, super fan. We need to give you more tchotchkes and free stuff. That's not a bribe, by the way. Anyway, so with the video games, we started off with logic and sequencing skills and programming. So back in 2012, let's say through 2016, learning to code, code.org, all this stuff really hot. So we started off with that game. And then we also then introduced other games like um, math, art, and now we have a chemistry game that's available on Steam. And we'll drop a link there so you can go and check it out. We also have a 3 games Puzzlet bundle for educators as well on our website that are available for purchase. And then one thing I want to show off is our music game that we're working on right now. We're collaborating with some Grammy winners, and essentially what we're doing, what we're going back to the way they wish they had learned music and what would have been helpful for them in their career, and we're taking it from that perspective. So we're going to give a little bit of like a sneak peek into some of our development we've been doing with a music game. So here we're getting this idea of rhythm, right? Where there's tapping involved. So the pitch is the name of the character. So the rhythm is the backbone of music, all music really. And this is level one, obviously. So you're trying to match the rhythm, matching basically through dancing and through sound. And as we're going through these very close, we're skipping ahead here. But again, to get past these bosses, if you will, you got to match the beat and essentially sync with them. Again, this is the key, underscoring the idea of collaboration and just interaction that's necessary to pull together an entire work of art, and in this case, music. So that's kind of like a brief teaser, if you will, of our music game, and that'll be available probably later this year. I think we'll be releasing that. So, anyway, with that, I will open up the floor to questions, and thank you for attending the presentation.
Bear with me 1 second, Jacob. So I know we do have had a few questions that have come in throughout the presentation. One thing that I think would be helpful to touch on a little bit more is what is monstrous molecules, and how are we able to teach chemistry with a video game?
Yeah. So, well, so chemistry is a love of mine. So the chemistry game. Okay, think about for most, I would say students, chemistry is boring, right? Until you blow something up, and then it's neat. Like you fill up a hydrogen or fill up a balloon with hydrogen, then set it on fire. Ooh, you're making water. There's demonstrations like that are kind of over the top that kind of get kids interested. With this game, we adopted a very downward looking setup where it's almost like the Adventures of Zelda, the Legend of Zelda, where you have Link going through various rooms. It has a very old school like 90s feel, very similar to the Binding of Isaac, if you will, and using that kind of fun, interesting game. First we're having fun, but at the same time, then the character, as he's going through these various levels, is trying to figure out how to pass them using chemistry. So let's say there's a fire monster. Okay, well, hydrogen and oxygen have to go together to make water to put the fire monster out. Or okay, I need to burn past these bushes. Okay, so we use methane in order to get past the bushes, etc. So at the end of the day, you're using very practical uses of chemistry in order to solve puzzles. And then at the same time, the learning is incidental, but now you're remembering, oh yeah, in class you'll say, oh yeah, that's water H2O. That makes sense because I needed Gregory, one of the main characters of the game, to get past these fire monsters. So that's how it works. Is we're slowly introducing these concepts for very practical ways of trying to conquer these levels in the game.
Yeah, and I'll add one other thing that's really nice about monstrous molecules is that there isn't it's not a physical, there's no physical implementation of the game. It's a digital game that's available on Steam, so that I think makes it easier for a lot of educators to deploy across their classroom, especially given the current environment where a lot of students are working or learning remotely.
Yeah, that's one of the major things we did with this next game is that a lot of schools can't especially now can't order the physical component or use the physical component. So this is the very first Puzzlets game that doesn't have Puzzlets, but it essentially can just act as any PC game downloadable on a Mac as well. And sales of it have been going pretty well, and that's kind of a testament to, I think, the game is good, but also the current environment. Parents and teachers are trying to get anything they can to just get more learning and engagement in their students. especially when they're learning remotely.
Yeah, thank you. Now, so we do have a couple questions about the coding curriculum, the classroom curriculum that we developed in partnership with the Carnegie Science Center. Um, could you explain how teachers might be able to use this in the classroom, and how does this enhance the experience of learning basic coding with Cosmo?
Yeah, so another question that rolled into is that the Puzzlets are available for sale right now. We have them in stock. We have them in inventory. So we operators are standing by to take your orders. So the repeat part of that question. I lost my train of thought, Matt.
Yeah, sorry. You did mention the coding curriculum that we
Yes.
developed in
Okay.
partnership
Yes.
with
Okay.
Carnegie
All right.
Science Center.
Yeah, so this collaboration with the Carnegie Science Center dealt with Cosmo going and acting as a rover to Mars. And so, what would be the practical steps to getting to Mars if you were Cosmo? And we have Cosmo the cosmonaut is kind of the curriculum. So there's the idea of trying to launch the rocket, take off into space. But then the other thing that's really critical in engineering and then in planning robotics is that once the rover, Cosmo in this case, is on Mars, you have a 7-minute delay, right? Because of the constraints of the speed of light and the theory of relativity, right? So while you're giving commands, they better be the right commands because you won't learn about the mistakes until 7 minutes after the fact. It's too late. So what's interesting is that the end of the curriculum, you are now building a robotics program to have Cosmo move as a rover on Mars, but now are essentially operating blindfolded. So now you have to get it right, and that's kind of how the course closes out. That you're now a roboticist, you have a rover on Mars, and this is the mission, and you have to complete the mission. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool build up.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. And everyone, I just want to encourage you to keep those questions coming in. We do have a couple others. So we did have a question about the partnership with Satiki and more of the content that they're creating, the animated shorts for Cosmo and Friends, and how we might see some of the live action content that we're going to be developing dovetail with the educational efficacy of Cosmo.
So an analogy I would use would be like Dora the Explorer and teaching Spanish. Like, that should mention like, in the beach, La Playa, and things like that to kind of introduce kids into this concept that you could speak Spanish and that it's relatable. We're going to be doing that only with robotics. That robotics is going to be relatable. And hopefully we get on Netflix or Nickelodeon or something like that, and then you see Cosmo and the Cosmo family, and now not only are you playing with a robot that's teaching robotics and is fun, but now is kind of famous. And now the children are even more interested in engaging and learning with it. And this idea of robotics is second nature. Just like following a map on Dora the Explorer. So that series will be very exciting, and we have the videos of it right now up on YouTube, Cosmo and Friends. We are constantly updated with new content, so take a look at it, subscribe, like and subscribe, as the YouTubers say. And yeah, I think it'll be a nice addition to the suite of educational offerings we have.
Yeah, so and I think we do have, we have some questions about the honeycomb campaign, and so it might be helpful to address, the honeycomb raise, but also the opportunity to develop new robots and how growing the DDL engineering team is really going to help accelerate bringing new products to the market.
Right. So here's the thing. The way I think of our products is that Cosmos is one that's most straightforward for learning, used right now all over the place in schools. There's a coder lab, drag and drop block coding. That's pretty straightforward. And then you have vector, which is a little bit more advanced, and you have this idea of having to use Python or some more advanced coding. If you want to go as deep as Linux or something like that, you can. Now we have outside of that family, we have the Butter Robot, for example, which is from Rick and Morty, which is known for crude humor and also sometimes some really dark avenues they take. But there's one beloved robot called the Butter Robot, and he's very sweet. He only has a minute of screen time, but everybody knows, all the Rick and Morty fans know him. And one thing we're trying to do is reach demographics of all types and all interests. And I think the Butter Robot's a perfect Trojan horse, right? You're playing with a butter robot, you get him home, he's getting your butter for you. But in addition to that, you're messing around with some of his AI and other features of machine learning. Before that, you're thinking, you know what? The robots are not just for AKA nerds or something like that. It's for everybody. And this idea that coding and robotics is not as intimidating as it should be, and hopefully introduce a whole other group of people into this idea that we can that you can do anything. And I'll tell you what, when you see the salaries of people, roboticists or high-end software developers, that you're talking about a permanent shift in generational wealth. So all of these things kind of underscore our mission to improve lives through coding, through learning.
Yeah, and I think one thing that maybe I can try to clarify the question a little bit, but the honeycomb race is not necessarily designed to help with the butter robot or any of the current robots that we're working on today, but is more looking ahead to the future of the company and some of the additional robots that we plan on.
Yeah, I would say, to make it simple, honeycomb. This honeycomb race is for Wizmo and Breezemo. If you want those two robots sooner, that's what it's for. And again, it's icing on the cake. If we're not dependent on any raise at this point. Not that this is a business or an investor meeting, but just so the teachers know that one of the biggest fears we had when we first started selling to teachers, just in the market in general, DDL, are you going to go belly up the next day? Now we've been around getting close to 10 years. We've been in business a while. So we know what risks to take. We know how to grow the company. We know at this point I have a good feel for what projects to take on, and that we're pretty solid in our standing and in what we take on.
Great, Jacob. Well, I think looks like that's answered most of the questions that we've had. Again, we will be sending an email with a link to the recording for the presentation, as well as a survey. And would welcome feedback on the format for the presentation. And if you do have any other questions, I would be happy to answer those for you as well. So again, thank you to all the attendees, and Jacob, thank you for your time. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody.